Welcome back. I'm that Halloween movie collector, Pat. Thought I'd take a moment and list my top five horror films that I saw in 2022. Now, 2022 was a great year for horror. Unfortunately, I wish I could have said I've seen them all. It's a real busy year, but there were five that did stand out that I did enjoy, and I hope you enjoyed them as well. Maybe they made your top five or top 10 list. I try to do top five lists just to keep the videos nice and short so you guys don't get sick and tired of me. So, end of 2022, picked my top five. Wasn't that easy to put them in order. Well, number one was a clear front runner, and if you watch my videos or the podcast, I'm sure you can probably figure out what my number one was. But let's start with number five. Number five, released in September, Barbarian. This movie kind of flew under the radar for me. A lot of people was a lot of hype about it, so I finally did get around to seeing it, and it was definitely a slow burn. The first act was very slow. A woman rents a Airbnb. Turns out it's double booked by Bill Skarsgård, no less. If you guys of the It franchise fans will recognize him. So they chat, and it's kind of creepy that she would stay there, and the whole premise sort of makes it seem like he's going to be doing something when the twist turns and it's not him that does something. He actually gets killed as well, and she disappears into this long ass dungeon buried at this house whose occupant was a sadistic incest person. It just had so much incest with all these people, had all these kids, and one of them was just this deformity. And actually, in the person who did all this was none other than our good buddy Richard Brake, if you're a big fan of the Rob Zombie films. So yeah, spoiler alert, there's a beast living in the basement called the Mother, and she's looking for people to basically like breastfeed. There's a couple of disturbing images of this beast, but it's a fun watch. Like I said, the first act is very slow because there's a lot of dialogue between the girl and the guy they're staying in the Airbnb. But once they go downstairs and see what's down there, it gets really interesting. I mean, there's even the whole area is like wiped out. You see, and it's just in the middle of like a deserted area. And how could I forget? There's the owner of is actually an actor who's being accused of sexual misconduct. So he actually comes to try to sell off certain properties to pay his legal fees. And that's when he stumbles upon what's going on in this house as well. So remember that actor. Well, it's played by Justin Long, fans of Jeepers Creepers, if you're a horror fan. And he's an actor, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. And he stumbles upon it and helps rescue the girl. She gets out, and then the mother gets out, and there's actually somebody actually living in that area, that burned out area, that knows about it down there and has tried to warn people about it. It's just a lot of fun. I don't want to spoil the whole thing and be this big spoiler review here, but it's a fun watch. It's like I said, the first part is a slow burn, so just sit through it. The dialogue, I mean, it's cool because it sort of makes it seem like he's going to be, the antagonist, and he's going to be the killer, and it does turn and take a real big spin, much in the vein of like Cabin in the Woods, where you had no expectations of what was actually going to happen once it happened. But fun watch, go check it out. Barbarian, my number five. Number four, something I've seen within the last 2 weeks, and just in time for the Christmas season, Christmas Bloody Christmas. Shudder original. If you don't have Shudder, go get Shudder, especially if you're a horror fan. There's a lot of great content. This was an original movie they just put out this month, and just a lot of fun. You want a brutal Santa? This is a brutal Santa. It's basically like Christmas meets Chucky meets the Terminator. So it's an animatronic robot built by the government that has some type of issue, and it's getting recalled, and it's in a toy store, and it comes to life within this toy store where this group of people are, and it sees all the people that are there, and it kills the people in the toy store, and then it just goes on a rampage chasing the other people that had also seen it. I mean, it's just great kills, great visualization, especially towards the end, as the little by little the one final girl, who was a great final girl, whose name is escaping me right now, but she was a great final girl, where parts and pieces of the Santa Claus come apart, and he's got like lasers coming out of his eyes, sort of like in the reminiscent of like the end of Terminator when he's all beat up and in pieces. It's a lot of fun. It's just got some great visualizations, great dialogue, especially if you're a metal fan. There's all these different, they're talking about music and metal and stuff like that. It's a good watch. If you have Shutter, go check it out. Especially, I mean, I know as of this, Christmas is over, New Year's is coming. I would say still go watch it. It's a fun movie. Number four, Christmas, Bloody Christmas. Number three, this is going to be divisive because it's number three and it did make my top five. So, and if you watch my channel, you see everything behind me. I'm a Halloween fan. So, my number three is Halloween Ends. Yes, I know it's very divisive. I know the whole second killer thing is just killing it. I mean, obviously, if you watch my channel, you watch the podcast, I'm sure you've seen Halloween Ends. So, spoiler alert, this Corey Cunningham character is, wrongfully accused of killing this boy. And then he starts to slowly send it to madness because the whole community is treating him like shit. And it's sort of like an homage to Arnie Cunningham and in Christine, where he's just becomes possessed and he's sort of becoming Michael Myers. And actually he's got his own mask, which is kind of cool, that scarecrow mask. And so it's yeah, I know it's very divisive. I don't even want to go into it because there's not enough time to start going about what I liked and didn't like. But the amount of screen time you actually had Myers on, too small. What we did get, I did enjoy. I did. Now I enjoyed the whole Corey story. If it was a different movie, I don't understand. I mean, even if it was a movie about this Corey Cunningham guy who was possessed by Michael Myers and just becomes that. He didn't have to meet Myers. He didn't have to grab his mask and treat him like a bitch, which really pissed a lot of fans off. It could have been a whole separate movie and it would have been interesting, where a boy is, a boy kid rather, is accused of this and slips into madness and then idolizes Myers and turns into Myers. I get that. That would have been an okay movie, but to put them together, especially with the end of a trilogy, was a bad move. But it made my top three because I looked at some of the other stuff. There are things about it I do like. James Jude Courtney knocked it out of the park again as usual. So it's I put it at number three. There's no way it was going to make it any higher or any lower. And then for all you fans out there that can't stand this movie, I apologize, but it's my number three. Halloween Ends. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. They just released it on all the various formats: Blu-ray, 4K. It's all out. So Halloween Ends, number three. Number two, a Netflix original, which was surprisingly really, really good. Well, in my opinion, I know there's the same thing. There's very divisive opinions, but my number two is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Netflix original came back earlier that was released earlier in this year. I thought it was a fun watch. I did like the new weird mask, which was actually the face of the woman who was taking care of him all these years. So if you haven't seen it, the premise is, not with too much spoilers again. Premise is, this group of people go to this abandoned town in Texas to basically revitalize it and get it. They're, investors that are coming in to take a look at this and they're trying to revitalize this whole town and take it over. And they meet this woman, Ginny, who lives in this orphanage, and then she collapses and they rush her to the hospital. She ends up dying, and that turns out to be the caretaker for none other than Leatherface for the past 50 years. And when all this comes to light, Sally Hardesty, the only survivor from the original one, not played by the original actress because she had since passed away, comes and tries to have this showdown and try to take him out. And it's just like some great sequences, great visuals, and a lot of really, really cool kills, including the final kill at the very end. And try not to be too spoilery. I don't want, in case you haven't seen it, but go check it out. It's a fun watch. Only criticism I have is the whole Sally Hardesty character really could have had, they brought her out nostalgia and it really could have done a little bit more with her and rather than the way it had ended up. That's only criticism. But the rest of the movie, I thought it was cool. The guys who played the Leatherface, whose name is escaping me, did a great job. I do like the new creepy mask, which is, like I said, it's actually the face of the woman Ginny who was taking care of him. He went to the hospital and took it, so that was his new face. So great movie. Just go check it out. It's a fun watch. My number two, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. And my number one, no surprise here, still hands down my favorite movie of the year, Terrifier 2. Now, this is a franchise, some people can either take or give or take it because of the gratuitous blood and gore and how brutal it is, especially if you've seen the first one, especially that one scene with the hacksaw where he's hacking a girl in half. And which is fine by me, it's all in good fun, but I had really high expectations to see how he was going to up the ante, Damien Leone, the director and the writer for Terrifier 2. And boy, did he deliver. So if you haven't seen it, go check it out. I was a little thrown off when I heard the runtime of 2 hours and 29 minutes. I think it was 2 hours and 29 minutes. Just, yeah, about 2.5 hours. But believe me, the movie moves, all the different sequences. You just totally engaged in the film. You don't even realize you're watching this blood and gore fest for almost 2.5 hours. There's some of my favorite stuff I've seen in years is in this movie. Lauren Lavera, hands down, my right at the top of the list of my new favorite Final Girls. New favorite, meaning, I'm not trying to knock off the OG Final Girls like Jamie Lee Curtis, but this one really, she's my new favorite. I'm looking forward to seeing her in Terrifier 3, which I know Damien Leone's talking about doing, especially with the success of Terrifier 2. So if you haven't seen Terrifier 2, go check it out. I mean, the whole premise, you don't even need, if you hadn't seen Terrifier Part 1, you really don't even need to see it. I mean, it really only harkens back in the very, very beginning and the very, very end to things that happened in Part 1. It's basically a whole new thing. And if they go do that where they don't have to rely on previous entries and they can just, it's actually pretty cool. I like that. That's the thing about movies that come out with sequels. You rely so much on what happened the sequel before, so you're kind of locked into a box. And this, if Damien Leone stays with this formula, he's not going to be locked into that box. So each one could be like a standalone film and not rely too heavily on the one before. I mean, granted, everybody's in love with Lauren Lavera, so she's coming back. And we'll see how that plays into it, especially the whole, psychological factor. I mean, her brother with the survivors. So I would assume he's going to come back too. And I'm forgetting his name. I know he's got a big YouTube channel, and I'm forgetting what his name is. Check it out. It's on, is it Redbox? I think it's streaming on there right now. And I believe it just came out in physical form. I think the DVDs are out. I saw people posting that. Not really sure. But go check it out. I mean, some of the greatest, most brutal scenes, especially one specifically, is just absolutely brutal. The whole clown cafe scene is, I just watched that scene over and over again because it just cracks me up. It reminds me of the old TV shows with the old clowns, that they were creepy to begin with, and this is even better. So it's just a lot of fun. Go check out Terrifier 2, hands down, my number one film, not just number one horror film of the year, my number one film of the year. So that's the film to beat in 2023. Let's see what happens. That is my top 5 horror films of 2022. It's tough to whittle it down just to 5. There were a few that that did not make my list that I did like. No reason to go on about it. I just want to keep this video nice and short. And there's a few that I haven't seen. Like I said, this year was a really busy year. So there's a few I have to go back and see. Like I want to see The Mean One, which just came out, the Grinch horror movie from Damien Leone with David Howard Thornton. I'll have to go check that one out. Violent Night, I haven't seen that yet. I'm actually going to be watching Violent Night later today. So there's some I'm going to have to start filling in the blanks that I did miss. But these are the 5 that stood out that I enjoyed this year. So going forward, I'll be doing some more standalone videos like this. I still be back on my Halloween collecting, collectible spotlights and whatnot, and bringing in different collectors. So if there's anything behind me you see, go to my Instagram page, which is at that Halloween movie collector, where my whole collection is. I post daily, try to post daily. If you see anything on there you want to see a collectible spotlight about, if you're a collector, you want to come on, show your Halloween collection, your horror collection, your music collection, anything. I just love collecting in general. I only specifically do Halloween because that's basically all I can afford, and that's all I can fit in my house. That's all the wife will allow too. Also, every Sunday at 8:00 p.m. Eastern Time, we do the Halloween Collectors Podcast over on my good friend Michael Strickland's channel, Michael's Horror and Pinball, with Michael and Brett. Every Sunday, we just talk Halloween, horror, movies, comedies, music, and have a bunch of drinks and just hang out and chat with people in the chat room and just see what kind of trouble we can get in. So go check it out. There's also a Facebook group for the Halloween Collectors Podcast, so you can go check that out, keep you informed on what's going on with the podcast. If you're a Halloween collector, go to Facebook land and look up Halloween and Michael Myers Collectors Group. Collectors Group I started a few years ago. Buy, sell, trade, information, show off your collection, interact with other collectors. Just a lot of fun in that group. Also on the Twitter world, that Halloween Movie Collector Twitter page is up and running. Try to post there as much as I can when I have the time. And also the Halloween Collectors Podcast Twitter page as well. Go check it out. Media onslaught of all things Halloween, horror, music, and fun. So there you have it. My top 5 horror movies of 2022. Do me a favor, like and subscribe to this channel. Hit that button. Be doing a lot more videos coming forward, especially in the new year. And I'm looking forward to people coming back. And do me a favor, put your top 5 horror movies down there too, because I may have missed one. One may have slipped by that I didn't see. So by all means, let me know, because I would like to check it out. So be sure to comment below and let me know your top 5. Don't give me too much hate for including Halloween Ends on this. I'm a Halloween guy, so I had to put it on there. So I don't want to hear too much hate for that. I didn't put it up there high. It wasn't predictable. It was not my number one at all. So be sure to comment below, like, subscribe, notifications, all that fun shit. And I will talk to you soon.